What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets Central podcast, episode number 87, as I will be recapping the Mets series that just occurred versus the Miami Marlins, where the Mets dropped 3 out of 4 games, looking a little bit more like the team that we've seen for the past 2, 3 months, where the Philly series is seeming like an outlier now as they head into Detroit starting today for a 3 game set, and Cincinnati coming up after that. So it is going to be an interesting road trip here for the Mets. I will be here to discuss it all. If you guys do like Matt more than me, he is not here today. So I'm sorry. Sucks for you. You're going to have to deal with me as I will be doing this show by myself today, as Matt was unavailable, which understandably so. It's difficult in the time crunch between these 2 games, but we are going to break everything down here. Before I jump into everything, I ask that you please leave a like on your way into the live show here, or if you're watching on replay, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live here on Met Central. There will be a post game, of course, directly after the Mets Tigers game this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the discussion here, which unfortunately is a painful series that the Mets just played against the Marlins, which unfortunately put a bow on the month of August as well, where the main topic and the main headlines about August thus far is really about how the Mets set franchise records in offensive categories. We're one of the better offensive teams in baseball in the month of August. And all of that for it to not matter. All of that for them to be 11 and 17 by the end of the month. The thing that's very frustrating is what I brought up in yesterday's post game, where it feels like with this team, it is constantly 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Anytime you think maybe they're going to dig themselves out of the way or dig themselves out of what we thought was a slump until it snowballed into, okay, maybe this is who they are. And then they sweep the Phillies. And it's like, okay, maybe they are a little bit better than we think. Maybe they are different. And unfortunately, it did not matter how they did in August offensively when, number one, the context also does matter with some of these offensive performances, which Matt and I have talked about ad nauseum, that context matters with these things. As good as the Mets were offensively, and I'll read the numbers to you right now: 177 runs scored, which is a franchise record in a month, 53 home runs, a franchise record, a 285 average, and a 866 OPS. So, all in all, really good numbers. And the reason why the context matters, though, is because for every game where, you had your 19-9 wins versus the Marlins, you had your almost no hitters versus Gavin Williams, you had your series in Milwaukee where the offense did not look as crisp as it needed to. You had that series against the Mariners where that second game, especially, nothing to show for offensively. You had those games in Atlanta where you needed a little bit more from your offense. So, as good as the offense has been, again, I don't want to take credit away from how they've been better as of lately, because there are still some games in there where they did put up a good amount of runs, and it's like the pitching just doesn't hold up. And I look mainly to that second game in Atlanta where a 6-0 lead for David Peterson and he blows it. But then there's also the context of that game where it's like they didn't hit once Carlos Carrasco was out of that game. Why is that? Why is it that we're still seeing tendencies of a bipolar offense? And the thing that's just so frustrating when you look mainly at this Marlins series that just happened, the Mets did everything right in that Philly series. Everything. To where that's where I started to think, and you guys know how difficult it is for me to get pulled in at points. I'm not easy to please. I am not easy to, that didn't sound right, but I'm not easy to, please as a viewing experience for baseball. There you go. It's not easy to rope me in and sell me that you are good. But After that Philly series, I started to actually get a little bit of hope. One, because I'm a sucker. Two, because everything was done right in that series. Hitting the ball, effective with runners in scoring position, efficient, I should say, playing good defense, the pitching, while the starting pitching wasn't anything great in that series, but you still got improvements from the bullpen throughout that series at points. And I thought, you know what? A little bit of things need to be fixed still. Like Ryan Helsley needs to get back on track here. You still need a little bit more from these veteran starting pitchers. But I was still thinking, go into this Marlins series, give me 3 out of 4, and I'm feeling good. And if they went 3 out of 4, they're sitting currently in the same spot that they left that Philly series, which is still 4 games back. And it's like, okay, you could still maybe make up the ground here, even though time's running out a little bit. Instead, they dug themselves a hole to where, thank goodness the Braves won last night, because if the Braves ended up losing, the Mets would have dug themselves back into the hole that they went into that Philly series in, which was 7 games back of the division. And it's sad that they dug themselves either way into the hole to where they are 6 games back. I had someone reply to my tweet yesterday after the Mets lost to the Marlins, or it was not even after, because I tweeted this during the game, that it's a horrible loss because I knew the writing was on the wall. But I had someone reply to me and was like, "Did you be realistic? Did you really think they were gonna beat the Marlins? Be realistic here." Yeah, I am being realistic. I actually thought that they were gonna beat the Marlins. I actually thought that at worst they would go 2-2, which I still thought, no way. I thought you're going to go 3-4. When I looked at the pitching matchup, especially in game one, I'm like, you're going to win that game. When I see David Peterson's on the mound in game 3 of the series, you're going to win the game. Those were the thoughts in my head. The game that I was the most skeptical of was yesterday's game, which ended up being rightfully so. Which also, makes another question to raise here, because they played Sandy and the offense, where'd it go? So that raises another question where it's like, what's going on with this team against a quality starting pitcher there? And I know Sandy, when you look at the baseline numbers, it hasn't been as good for him. But again, the context matters with these things. And he's been pitching like, I don't want to say exactly like, because he's still been slightly worse, but he's been pitching closer to that Cy Young caliber starting pitcher that we saw before he was injured, compared to what we saw at the beginning of the season. So Sandy's a good pitcher, and tip your cap. He's just a good starting pitcher. Tip your cap to Sandy. No, I don't want to be tipping my cap to Sandy, because the thing that I talk about all season long, when everyone's like, you just got to tip your cap to the good pitcher. How many times am I going to have to do that until this team actually beats a good pitcher? Because the thing that I've talked about at nauseum is, this offense is paid to be up on elite pitching, and it's not going to happen 100% of the time. I am not asking for that. But could I at least get like maybe a 50% of the time, or maybe like a 60-70% of the time, where they're actually able to beat up on a bat or on a good starting pitcher, or at least make that starting pitcher work and you get him out of the game and you get to the bullpen? Could I at least get that? Instead, no. Instead, this offense rolled over and died, and I thought Sandy was going to give a complete game shutout, truthfully, yesterday for a bit. Meanwhile, I'm watching the Mets' supposed top line starters not being able to give any sort of volume, to the fact where I'm giving a standing ovation from my living room to Brandon Waddell and Kevin Herget and all these other guys that they have to call, Chris Davinsky. I have to give a standing ovation to these guys instead for eating innings, because these starting pitchers don't do the job that the rookies are doing. And, that's the thing that I mainly talked about as well throughout this series. These starting pitchers, these veteran starting pitchers, should feel embarrassed because you have two rookies that are doing the job you are supposed to be doing and doing it way better than you. And it's one thing if they were doing better, it's the fact that they are a country mile doing it better than you're doing it. Which also raises the question, do you call up Sproat? Doesn't seem like they are. I actually don't even know if they made the roster moves just yet for September call-ups. I mean, I know that they called up Acuna. That was the only one I saw. Justin Hagenman. So there you go. So they brought up another guy to eat innings there, which makes a lot of sense, which I'm assuming this is until Tyler McGill is maybe ready to go, or if the Mets decide, hey, you know what? Maybe we should Phantom IL Kodai Senga, because here's the thing that's bothering me for the Senga conversation, because I want to focus on him a lot during this episode. Here's the thing that's bothering me about the whole Kodai Senga thing. So you have the crowd, which I kind of lean towards. I think the league has just figured him out more. I think there's a reason that and again, I don't want to play revisionist history here, but there's a reason teams weren't lining up to sign this guy. And don't get me wrong, I don't think anyone expected him to get to like this point, but everyone viewed him at the time as kind of like a middle of the rotation piece, back end of the rotation piece on a like really good World Series caliber squad. He had a good 2023. Last year, we saw two good starts. And then this year, to start the year, he got off to a good start. But there were also things about that start where it's like, are some of these things sustainable? And then the injury happens. I don't know if it threw him off rhythm. I don't know, again, if the league just figured him out. But all I could say is this for the crowd that thinks that it's injuries, it's an injury thing. Okay, then why is he taking the ball every 5 to 6 days? He needs to go on the IL then, because you cannot have Kodai Senga when he's not at 100%. Because whatever this is, if he's not at 100%, it's hurting the team. And you could be giving those innings to Brandon Sproat right now, who would give you more innings probably. You could be giving it to now this little piggyback role, if you really wanted to, of Hagenman and Waddell. Or when Tyler McGill's ready, and I can't believe I'm saying it, you could give that role to him. And you know what? I actually think Tyler McGill would give more innings right now than Kodai Senga. But either way, we're going to find out an answer at some point about if the league figured him out or if it's an injury thing. But again, if it is an injury thing, and he said after yesterday's game, he said, my body just doesn't feel right now. Go on the IL. I heard all I needed to. Why are you pitching? I don't want to hear the excuses. Because if you're going to play through an injury, then it's on you to still give at least a little bit of what you are at 100%. And if you're actively hurting the team, and I talk about this all the time in sports, not just baseball, hockey, especially any sport. If you're playing injured and it's hurting the team more than helping, do not play. Because you're not a hero for powering through the injury if you're hurting the team. And you're not a hero for, dogging it out to play the Marlins in September or August. Playoff time's a different story, but you're not some sort of hero for powering through a random July game against the Baltimore Orioles, or I don't think he ended up pitching that series, but you get what I mean. Like I'm not applauding you for dogging it out versus the Los Angeles Angels in July. So For me, he needs to go on the IL if this is going to be the case. Because 4 2/3, man. Come on. Oh, but look at the ERA. Again, the context matters with that as well. Look at his ERA over the past. Here, let's actually look at his second half ERA real quick, according to Fangraphs. Let's see what his second half ERA is up to these days. Because I can tell you right now, it's not going to be pretty to look at all. If I could find what I'm looking for. 6.56. There you go. First half, 1.39. Second half, 6.56. Go on the IL. I'm sorry. Go on the IL. And the first half numbers, this is what I meant by it wasn't sustainable. He had a 3.20 FIP. Right now in the second half is 6.10, which is disgraceful. Which it shows that it wasn't sustainable what he was doing, but it was still going to at least be decent. But this isn't cutting it. But you know what? I can't fully blame him in yesterday's game because, again, where was the offense? Pete Alonso. Where was Pete Alonso this series? Outside of him participating in game number 2 a bit there. And sorry, he had the home run in game number 1 as well. But, I mean, defensively, this team defensively in general, you have McNeil not covering first base yesterday. Just all these little details of what they're not doing right. And then base running too. Like, what about Juan Soto in yesterday's game, right? No, sorry, it was game number 3. What about Juan Soto where you go down 5-0 and you have a chance to really spark something and he's trying to go first to third on that Alonso single? What's going on there? And then don't even get me started on Cedric Mullins if we're going to talk about this team as well. Like with the offense and defensive mistakes, don't get me started on Cedric Mullins. He should not be playing. He shouldn't. But let me see what you guys are saying in the chat a bit as well before I continue to go on my tangent about Cedric Mullins. Armand, what's going on? Matt, thank you. Leave a like, sub everyone. The AAA starting pitching is better than the big league club. Yeah, it is. Sorry. Needed some coffee there. In my system. That's bad. You gotta believe. Fuck the summer. It's fall and the Mets are gonna go on a streak. Come on, let's go. I appreciate the positivity. I'm not there, unfortunately. I was a lot more positive last episode. I hope you're right. Please be right. I can't be there though, unfortunately, right now. Look, you lost 3 out of 4 of the Marlins. Like, come on. But this is the problem. I get that Sandy is Sandy, but this offense is making a ridiculous amount of money. It's realistic that the Mets should have beat the Marlins in the series, but it's also realistic to not be surprised when the group plays down the competition. That's really the thing. Yeah, because that's what I would say to the person that replied to me saying that. It's like, I'm not surprised by the outcome. Let's not get it twisted. It's very Mets-like to drop a 4-game series to the Marlins. But I'm not going to sit here and say going into the series, I didn't feel good. I think both things could be true. The offense has enough to take out Cabrera and then disappear. Yeah, it's just like, I don't understand. So this adds up a little bit to the Mullins thing that Taylor's been dealing with a hamstring tightness since Friday and hasn't been available since. All I could say is there's still no reason for Mullins to be in the lineup because give me Marte then at DH, get McNeil in center field, put Vientos in the field again. You cannot have Cedric Mullins out there. He's horrible. I am so tired of watching him. What a dud of an acquisition that has been. Sanger was always a three for me, nothing more. Even when he was putting up ace numbers, I never viewed him as an ace. He was only given the ace role because he was technically our best starter. Exactly, yeah. But either way, back to the point here. Yeah, I can't understand at all. I just can't understand at all how you're trotting Cedric Mullins out there when you could just put McNeil out there in center field. Come on. But either way, back to the point of like the defense as well. It's like, how about in Jonah Tong's start too, right? How about in the one win of the series? You don't give your young rookie phenom some good defense behind him, costing him going 6 innings. That fifth inning was a train wreck. Lindor, come on. Can't catch a ball there. Alonso. It's like, what is going on here with this team defensively? And then the Clay Holmes thing in that game one. And do you blame Alonso more because Alonso gave a different throw than he usually does? I don't know, but Clay Holmes has to catch the ball there. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is something that I talked about all season long, where it's like this team has not been playing good defensively throughout the year. And you could give me whatever numbers to say, oh, but well, actually, look at this. I don't know if there's numbers that say they're good defensively or not. All I know is that if there are numbers that say they are good defensively this year, shove it up your ass because in crunch time, I'm not seeing good defensive play. When they need to make the big plays, they're not getting it done. And Lindor, I'm mostly looking at him with that because there are so many times this year, and I love Lindor, and he is good defensively. But how many times this year, in a key moment, has he made a big error? How many times does that happen? To me, that's problematic because you cannot make those little mistakes in October. And they just continue to make these mistakes. I mean, they had 3 errors in game 1, 2 in game 2. They didn't have any in game 3, but that doesn't tell the story. And then they had 1 yesterday. So you had 6 errors against the Miami Marlins this series. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. And again, for a team that got so much right, not just last year, but in that Philly series, everything was done right defensively. And then it just, they woke up for that Philly series and played down the Marlins. And sure, you know what? Maybe they are better against the good teams. And I guess we'll find out starting tonight or this afternoon, rather. But, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they are. But are any of us really going to sit here and sell ourselves where it's like, you know, is that the case? But they better wake up again to play these good for these good teams. Otherwise, we got bigger issues because then you're going nowhere in October. Just inexcusable. the way this team plays defense. And then the starting pitching, like I said, David Peterson, man, in that third game. David Peterson. I'm very disappointed in him. I am very disappointed in David Peterson lately. Guy that was one of the more consistent starters for this team, providing that volume. It's like ever since I opened my mouth about that and was giving him the praise, hasn't been as good. He's got a 5.02 ERA in the second half, guys. It's like all those numbers we talked about on Baseball Savant are catching up to him. And I'm not an ERA person entirely, but when it's that bad, it's that bad. And he's got to be a hell of a lot better. I mean, how do you allow 8 runs to the Marlins? It's just again like these veteran starters should be ashamed. They really should be ashamed. And then how about Clay Holmes as well? Where the other thing, I give him praise in his last 2 starts or whatever, actually deepening the arsenal. And it's like, okay, maybe you could actually get some decent volume out of Clay Holmes. And then, nah, he just decides in game 1 of the series, nah, I'm going to go back to like only throwing the sinker and I'll throw a few sweepers and changeups here and there. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Let me get to some other chats here just because we got a lot coming in. Um, Marlins always a dagger in our side. And guess what? We have them for the last 3 days of the season. I don't even want to think about that. It's very sickening, to be honest with you, that once this road trip is wrapped up for the Mets here against Detroit, Cincinnati, Philly, these last 9 games at home could be the last 9 games at home for the season. How sickening is that? Because does anyone think they're getting home field in a wild card series? If they get there, of course, because now that red series might mean something. How sickening is that? That for the last, those could be the last 9 home games of the season. Do they stand a chance against the Tigers today? I have no clue. I have legitimately no clue what team's showing up today. That's the problem because it's like, there are times where it might seem like I'm a little all over the place with my takes with this team because how could you not be? This team is so bipolar that how could you not constantly be going through the motions with this shit? I mean, you're going against Charlie Morton, so I don't know. How important is it for the Mets to come out and win the first game, but to sustain it and win the series? Very important. Because the thing that I talked about during that Philly series is okay, you need to build now on what you just did against the Phillies. They didn't. And my other thing was, okay, next time you lose a game, you need to show me how you respond. And hey, you know what? They did respond in game 2. And then after that, nope, gone. Yeah. They better get their act together, is right, Jake. 100% they better. Mullins 224, Torrens 216, Beatty 215, 789 today. Mullins shouldn't be in the lineup. Yeah, Morton carved them when he was on the Orioles. So who the hell knows what's going to happen? That's what I was going to say. There's no in between. It's either the Mets are going to annihilate him or he's going to get close to a complete game shutout. There is no in between with that tonight or today. Sorry. I'm like, it's throwing me off the first game being a 1 o'clock start, and I don't like it. I get why they're doing it a 1 o'clock start today, but I don't, not a fan. Not a fan at all. But either way, I mean, just to really wrap up, talking about this Marlins series as well, if there even is really anything else to wrap up. I mean, the only positive you could really take away is Juan Soto's really looked like he has found his full stride. And I know that you looked at the numbers all year and it's like, oh no, he's been this way, but I feel like you're starting to see it a bit more. And it really freaking sucks in game number 3 that you could have had a Juan Soto, like true Met, like his true first I'm the man type of series or type of game rather. You could have had Juan Soto's like biggest game as a Met in game 3 of the series, but instead Peterson doesn't want to give any sort of volume. The manager doesn't want to pull him as well, which that's another conversation with the manager. I'm very annoyed with him. Um, and then Diaz as well, giving up those runs did not help either. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin. And then Rogers giving up contact all the damn time. All I could say about all these rentals, though, that they acquired, good riddance when the season ends. They have a chance to change my mind in October. For now, though, good riddance. I don't need to see any of these guys back. And speaking of guys coming back, um, looks like Siri could be returning a little bit soon. Winker, maybe. They're both rehabbing down in single A. I'd imagine once those guys are ready to go, Mauricio and Acuna are going to be the guys' option. It's going to make things interesting though. Come playoff time with the roster, it's like, which guy's going to stay, which guy's going to go. I mean, I know who I would. I know Cedric Mullins wouldn't be on my playoff roster, but I guess it really depends on how Siri and Winker do down the stretch. Winker has not been as sharp in his rehab appearances thus far, but there is still time, of course, for that to change. But they need the Winker they got last year in October in this lineup at points, especially yesterday. They could have used that. So we'll see if that ends up changing, of course, with him. But they still got probably a ways to go. They probably still have another week at or two at least in the minor leagues before we have that conversation. Bench going on the IL, so there you go, another injury, and that's unfortunate because I really wanted to see Benj cook up in AAA because I really wanted to see if he could play his way potentially not onto the roster this year, maybe if he like really raked, but at least prove put me on the opening day roster next year. Now it's like they're probably gonna have to start him in AAA if he's truly that injured. That sounds like his season's done because the minor leagues. I'm not sure how much baseball there is left there. I don't think there's too much there. Yeah, I mean, there's only like 3 weeks of games at this rate, so I don't know if his season's done or not, but it's just unfortunate that if it is the case. But either way, um, the Mets have their series coming up against the Tigers. The pitching matchups in this one: Sean Manaea versus Charlie Morton, Nolan McLean. While the Tigers have not announced their start for Game 2 and Game 3 is Clay Holmes versus Casey Mize. Find a way. Oh, you're saying he's back from the IL. I read that wrong. Okay, never mind. I apologize, guys. I read that comment wrong. That's because I saw the Benj is hurt comment, and then I saw Benj with the IL, so I apologize there. Thank goodness. All right. Um, but yeah, all I could say is find a way to win the series. Yeah, I apologize, guys. Yeah, he came off 2 days ago. Thank you for correcting me as well, you guys. Um, but yeah, I mean, you better find a way to win the series. I don't know. I'm not giving a prediction this time around. I have no feel at all with the series because I could see them surprising us and sweeping, or I could see them getting swept. Like I don't even know if I see an in between here really with the series. Maybe win one game. I don't know. Again, I don't have a feel with the series. I really don't. But you better find a way to win because you got to create that separation that you all of a sudden lost a little bit of with the Reds, and you need to get back on the right track here because I don't want to be stressing when they play the Reds. And I still want them to find a way to, at the very least, get home field advantage in a wild card series. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. We'll see, I guess. I mean, stranger things have happened, but now it's September, and they better find a way to start to really play good baseball consistently because, like I've said after that Philly series as well, the first few months will not matter if you turn things around and go on a hot stretch here in September and let that roll into October. But they have to start heating up because time's ticking here. Time is ticking, and you need to get that momentum going into October, or else you don't stand a chance. Whether right now they'd be lined up to play the Dodgers, and no, they wouldn't beat the Dodgers. What does it take to get home field? Well, right now the Cubs are at 78 wins while the Mets are at 73. So 5 games back, and they do have a series against the Cubs in September here. So you got to keep yourself, you got to gain some ground there as well on the Cubs from now to then. So a lot to do here in a short amount of time, and they better find a way to do it. That's all I could say. But I'm going to wrap things up here. A little bit of a shorter episode with the fact that the series starts in an hour or so. I want to give this time for people on replay to watch it. So thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live on the channel next. And I'll see you guys in the next one.